As the war continues to ravage Ukraine, Polish cities are experiencing a refugee crisis. More than 3 million people have left war-torn Ukraine, with the majority crossing into Poland. The situation is dire, with ordinary men and women assisting and feeding the refugees. The Polish government has now been called upon to offer even more aid as the number of people streaming across is increasing daily and there seems to be no end in sight to the conflict. Our team is in Poland. Senior reporter Siphamandla Goge joins us for the latest. Siphamandla, it just seems as though there is no end in sight, where you have thousands, millions trying to leave Ukraine, as it just does not seem as this war is going to end anytime soon. What can you tell us from where you are?
Indeed, that continues to be the case, whereby we see thousands of people crossing over to Poland from Ukraine. About a minute ago, another bus crossed over here from Zoshin border, which is between Poland and Ukraine, and offloaded some of the people that Jokomane will try to show you the cars here that they have been loaded into. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see a long queue. You will just see the cars outside this border. This is where cars come to pick up people, but those who are crossing this border, they cross using public transport. They are evacuated using buses from the side of Ukraine. They get brought here. Others will disembark and go into cars of those who would have come here to basically welcome them. Others will continue with their buses, or will continue on the buses all the way to the nearest city or town here in Poland, because they don't have accommodation. They don't know where they're going to stay. So there are temporary shelters that have been put up outside borders of Poland, between Poland and Ukraine. There are volunteers that are helping out here outside Zoshin border. This is the situation. It may not look busy, but believe me, it's really and extremely busy in terms of buses that are coming over, from the side of Ukraine, going all the way to the neighboring or nearest towns and cities here in Poland. And all of those buses are packed with refugees from Ukraine. I'm talking about women and children. The setup outside here is full of volunteers who have come to help out those who need help. Earlier on, about 2 minutes ago, I spoke to a gentleman who is from Germany. He has just crossed over to Ukraine, going there to deliver medical supplies, because one of the most urgent needs right now is the issue of medical supplies. And this is one of the volunteers from Poland who's helping refugees. Thank you very much for your time. You run this place. Talk to us about what do you do here and what kind of help you offer to refugees.
Absolutely. We are helping mostly women and children when they cross through the border on foot. Some of them, they are walking 5, 6, 7, 8 days, so they're completely exhausted, often traumatized. We have a medical point for them here. We have some warm food, warm tent. We can offer them food for the next 2-3 days. We offer them cosmetics as they literally walk with almost nothing, or they have many kids and maybe one suitcase. So we offer them a start. Of course, we help them find transport and accommodation. We send them to reception points if they have nowhere to stay, and we offer them also a hug if they need it.
Based on your observation, would you say more and more people are crossing over to Poland? The United Nations has said more than 2 million people have now fled to Poland alone. But when they arrive here, what is the most urgent thing that they need?
Absolutely. So we've noticed that the biggest wave that we had in the last 2 weeks slowed down. So yes, the first, I think, 2 weeks, 1.5 million people came, and the last week was around 500,000. So the first rush, as we call it, is slowing down. However, what they need is the coordination and the next step. This conflict might take some time to resolve, and also it might be even that they will come back there, but it will take some time. So what is needed is actually a coordination between where they can sleep for longer, where they can stay in a safe environment, where the kids can go to school and all that. So in Poland was so far very well organized and coordinated. However, no one expected 2 million people to cross over. So the help from other organizations and people of good hearts would be a huge necessity right now. As you probably know, we didn't do any refugee centers. Everybody is in the private houses, in hotels that open their doors, in just general apartments. So what is needed is some kind of help in organizing the next step for if they stay there for a month, 2 or 3, to bring food, supplies, cosmetics and that.
Simply put, you need more volunteers to help out. But let's talk about how challenging has it been for you and how emotional has it been for you to deal with this situation where you help about 95% of women and children who are desperate.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, but so for the last 2 weeks we've been working 16, 17 hours a day. We've seen things that for now we are living on an autopilot, and one day we will have to just stop and think what we've been through and what we've seen. But what is important right now is to focus on them. They are the ones that actually need so much support and psychological help as well at some point to deal with the trauma and the things they've seen throughout their days walking here. But for us, for now, we have our support from the organization, from volunteers, from people from really all over the world just coming and supporting and helping and bringing donations, as we need almost everything. We need cosmetics, we need food, we just need supplies in order to provide for them.
Thank you very much for time. Let's release you so that you can go back and continue with your work. Thank you very much for time. That is one of the volunteers, in fact, one of the coordinators who runs this whole operation outside this border between Poland and Ukraine, summarizing the urgent needs that refugees require urgently. And the issue of medical and health supplies is becoming more and more critical. As earlier on, I think yesterday we visited one of the borders called Rebene, where we saw too many ambulances crossing over to Ukraine, and we interviewed medical volunteers who told us that right now, if this war does not end, there is another health crisis that is looming, whereby people will be in desperate need of health supplies. And already authorities in Poland and medical volunteers are starting to feel that if this does not end, things will get worse.
Siphamandla, before I let you go, I'm just curious to know, you're hearing the desperation from the volunteer that you just spoke to, and you being there, understanding what's truly going on with millions trying to flee Ukraine. Has there been any word from, for example, the Polish government's for there to be a need for other countries to come in and assist, especially the neighboring countries at Ukraine, because it just seems as though Poland can't be the only one that's going to be able to handle all of this, especially if there's a medical crisis at play here.
Indeed, that call keeps on being made every day. I'll ask my colleague Jokomane to come with me as we will show you some of the people who are waiting for their loved ones to cross the border, cross over from the side of Ukraine to come to Poland. The Polish authorities have made that call several times. They continue to make that call to say they need other European countries and neighboring countries to open up their borders and take more people, because Poland is not coping with the influx and the numbers, as we see these cars that have got medical volunteers here and health volunteers to supply urgent and needed health needs for these refugees. We have seen countries such as Germany, Czech Republic, Italy and others doing their bit in sending in buses to take some refugees and allow them to cross over to their countries. But Polish authorities say that is not enough, and they are appealing for more countries to do more in taking at least the bigger chunk and the bulk of these refugees, because Poland is going to run out of public spaces. Most of the refugees that have been taken here in Poland. They are accommodated at train stations, supermarkets and shopping malls have been converted into humanitarian aid centers, and it's going to continue to be like that. So to answer your question, yes, Polish authorities continue to make that call to other neighboring countries to say, please do more, because we are not coping.
Certainly, I think the call is out there, and hopefully countries that can assist do so urgently, because the situation is very dire. Thank you so much for your time, Siphamandla Goge.